Thank you. So we've done this before, and I find it very effective because I want to start with just a brief practice that enables a sense of safety and embodied presence where you are. And I haven't heard any complaints about it, so I'm doing it for the third time. And I believe it reassures our amygdala that we are not at risk and calms us and creates a feeling of ease. Then our special guest, Hilary, our author, will offer a land acknowledgement. And after that, we'll have small groups of 4 for intros for 8 minutes, then an interview time of 30 minutes. And after the interview, we'll be in small groups of 3 to talk, enable reactions, and that'll be for a good 15 minutes. And then we'll have 15 more minutes for a full group Q&A. And Hilary's going to offer something, I'm sure undoubtedly wonderful for us as a closing. So take some breaths, relax in your seat, and with closed eyes, close your eyes, turn your head slowly side to side, right, midline, left, your eyes closed. And now back to midline, open your eyes, and slowly turn your head to the left and look at everything that you see. You're scanning what is in your space and in your place. Back to the midline and now to the right. So you're seeing everything, and your brain is seeing it and recognizing where you are. Okay, I'll take a breath and stretch a little. Let's have 2 breaths. So blessings on us and our bodies and to our sacred space today. Yes. Thank you, Hilary, for offering your land acknowledgement.
Greetings, everybody. I am so happy to be with you all today. It's just such a joy. And I'm really honored that you have come together to read my book and talk about it. That is just, what a gift. I'm so honored. So thank you. And I want to share that I am sitting here. I'm at my house, and the sacred mountain that is on the cover of the book is right over here. She's over my left shoulder right now. She is known as a being of kinship to the tribes of this region, which include Hopi, Havasupai, Dene, Apache, some Pueblo groups, Yavapai, and some others too. And this land is kind of sits in her footprint. And I have lived here for over 30 years. I moved here to go to college. And, you know, when I first moved here, I had no idea of the significance of this mountain or this land, or even that it was indigenous land. I didn't know about any of those things. But I've had friends who are indigenous tell me since then that the mountain works on everyone who lives here, whether we're aware or not. And she has been working on me for over 30 years. Now I understand that. It took me a long time to understand that, but now I really get it. And the way that she's been working on me and teaching me has really inspired me to want to give back to her and to take care of her. And so part of my land acknowledgement is the acknowledgement that I'm a 9th generation settler. My people came to this continent in a way that did not encourage reciprocity or right relations at all. But I'm trying to step into that now. And one of the ways that I do that is by supporting Indigenous-led community organizing that protects this mountain. This mountain is being desecrated by a ski resort that manufactures snow out of reclaimed sewage water. And of course, the only people who can afford to go to that ski resort are settlers. And so it's especially egregious to put sewage on a sacred site. And so we have been working for years to try to get a stop to that. And who knows if or when or how that will happen, but we're continuing to keep moving forward with that as much as we can. And part of my land acknowledgement also is that my family and I boycott that ski resort. And my children have had to be the only kids who don't go skiing. And we've had many conversations about that. So, and not all of them happy conversations. So anyway, that's a little bit to share about my place and where I am here and how I'm trying to be in relationship with this land.
Thank you. Thank you, Hilary. Appreciate that. And it's such an important part of your story as well. So,
Molly, there are 32 participants,
yeah,
including you and me and Hilary. So if you want to make either 7 rooms would maybe have 5 people in it, or 8 rooms would have 2 or 3.
Yeah, I think I'll do. Hilary, do you want to go into an intro group?
Into a group?
Yes.
Yeah, sure. I'd love to.
Okay, great. All right, I've got it going here, and we'll see you. We're inviting 4 people to come and answer. Let's see.
Oh, here we go. Just a second. Sorry.
Yeah. So I invite you in the small group as an intro, and obviously all free will on this, but I invite you to introduce yourself with your name and your 2 grandmothers' names. And who are you named after? Why are you named? And who were you named after? And I'm going to send you to your rooms. Have a good time. Great. So thank you so much, you all, for reading and gathering and enjoying our special guests who have agreed to come to us in the last sessions, and of course, with Hilary today. And I do have the hope that you might donate to their heartfelt projects that I listed on the special participants page. I'm going to do an intro, and then Hilary and I just I have some things I really, really want to talk to her about and ask her about. But we'll proceed, and I'll just give a little context for what I'm thinking in my life to the questions that have come up for me. So I grew up in a very large Irish clan in San Francisco. We grew up together. We went to school together. We lived in the same neighborhood together. And we gathered for all our holidays at our grandparents' home. And we were guided by our grandfather and grandmother and our Catholic teachings. Then I started breaking apart that fabric in my exploration of our ideologies, myths, and self-centeredness, exclusiveness. And it is hard to face the real perpetrations that I have discovered and to re-identify myself because of that learning. Hilary has opened my heart and given me a different guidance, for which I'm deeply grateful. Her writings and commitments to the work to reconnect to ourselves and our earthly home is a challenge and inspiration. Deeply expansive and beautiful, Hilary, beautiful. So I take hope in this work, and I have faith in it. And may we honor Hilary's path and allow ourselves to be changed by it. So I'm very happy to talk with Hilary today, with all of you joining us. Once again, let's be comfortable in our refuge and deep breath, because there is so much to discuss and digest. Hilary, I want to find out more about other ways of knowing. And that seemed to be the provocative moment for me in these readings, is you advocate for other ways of our learning and knowing, whether it's ceremony or fasting or praying, dreams, visions. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. And also, I see a few people in here who are part of the current Rekindling Ancestral Memory Circle. So if any of you want to add to this, feel free, because we talk about this a lot in the circle. But, for me, I just, I realized at some point that I had been, like we are in Western culture, we are taught to be so much in our heads and so analytical and relying so much on, quantitative facts and things like that, and or quantifiable facts. And and um and along the way, especially as I started finding my way into more Indigenous community spaces, I realized that there was a completely different way of knowing, way of being, that was a whole body of knowledge that I had never been introduced to and didn't understand at all. And so I remember one of my first experiences was, sitting with an elder who did dream interpretation. And dreams were considered to be very important. The minute you had a dream, you were supposed to tell it and have it witnessed by the community, and then the community would get insights from those dreams, and the dreams were considered to be a collective source of information too. It wasn't just that dreams are only in our own psychological individual little world, like is thought of sometimes in the West. It was more like the dreams are a collective communication, a community support. And so I started working with my dreams, and I started paying attention to my intuition, which had probably always been there, but I was very adept at ignoring it and just pretending it wasn't real. And I really started to listen to it. And then I found that when I did those things, magical things would happen, like synchronicities would happen, and people would appear out of nowhere, and books would appear, and all kinds of things would happen. And so it was a very rewarding experience just to begin practicing that and experimenting to see what would happen. And it was rewarding to see results immediately.
Wow.
So that's kind of what I started to practice, and I'm still practicing, and we'll never finish learning that or be an expert at all, but just a way of being curious, I would say.
So what about your visions as well? And I'm so taken by the beginning part of our pages this time, and your discussion about women and water, and very moving for me, having a lot of mother-oriented sense in my life. So tell me a little bit more about the water story and vision.
Yeah, I did this training with Kathy Sanchez, Elder Kathy Sanchez, about a decade ago or a little more. And she taught me about, water is life. Water can hear us. And she gave me all these instructions, like, go listen to the water, go listen for the memories of your people in the water, go pray with the water, and things like that. And then especially once I started that fasting ceremony, I started to see that we were actually sometimes talking to the water. There's something about being without water for several days in a row that makes you understand just how important water really is. I mean, on a deeply visceral level. And so there were so many experiences like that that started to teach me. And then I started to have dreams and visions, like you mentioned, Molly, and I started to interact with water really differently. And this is another thing that we do in our circle. We pray with water every time that we gather. We always have a bowl of water with us. And I always have a bowl of water on my altar. I sing to the water. I've had experiences where, who knows, maybe it was just a fluke, or maybe singing over that bowl of water actually called the monsoon rain clouds in here. I don't know. But things like that have happened where when we interact with water like a being, water starts behaving differently. And this is something I've heard from so many elders, like we need to be honoring the water right now, especially in this time of climate chaos that we're in, where water is so important. And, whether there's not enough of it or too much, it can have a huge impact on all the life systems around us. And so what could change if we began relating to water as the sacred being that it is,
Right.
instead of just a commodity?
Right. Oh, it's so important. And I love your connection with saying that the underground lake, reestablishing our relationship with the underground lake, which you call the womb of Mother Earth, and connect it to the moon time, and how our bodies are of water, of course, and we birth our children within our bodies with our embryonic waters. And it was very touching to me when you talked about that our relationship between water and humans has been interrupted by war and conquest and ideologies of progress, and damaged our relationship with Earth, connecting it to the climate change. And it's very touching to me to think of this whole embodiment.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, me too. And I think one of the most important books for me was a book called Witches and Pagans by Max Dashu.
Mm-hmm.
And in that book, it focuses on the years between 700 and 1100 in Europe. And it was just so moving to see how our ancestors practiced these reverential relationships with water throughout Europe. And, they were making offerings, they were singing, they were sitting by the water overnight, they were passing their babies through bodies of water to bless them. They were doing all kinds of things. And then, to see how that patriarchal collusion between church and state ended all of that. And, but we can reclaim it. It's just, it's so easy. It's so easy for us to reclaim it right now, even just with a glass of water that we're drinking, or, the water in the soup pot, or the water in the bathtub. So that book is really, really helpful for me.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for that. Which is kind of a segue to.
Could you repeat the name of the book again, please?
Yeah, I'll put it in the chat.
Yeah. So what guides me to this at the moment is our history that we've had to face, as you brought it up about Europe with Max Dashu, and the mythologies and the ideologies and the doctrine of discovery, and tell a very interesting history. But so tell us a little bit about that, in that it's a deep collective reckoning from what you're saying. And it's a continuation that we see in our life right now with the Christian nationalism, which makes the pit of my stomach feel a little ill right now.
I know, me too. Yeah, it's like, I look at what's happening right now and I think, okay, so we haven't learned our lesson yet. This is so predictable. This is such an old pattern. It's been established so many times over so many centuries. And it's really unfortunate that it's raising its head again. And then sometimes I think, maybe we've changed enough now that we are going to be able to push back on this and not let it completely overwhelm everything. I hope that's really what I'm praying for and hoping all the time now is like, let this be the moment when we make the other choice and don't let this consume us again. Because it's the same pattern. I mean, that's one thing that strikes me so much about that book too, is you just see how these patterns have been laid down in history that we just keep replicating. It's like we're being given the choice over and over again. What are we going to do with it this time? And, I was talking with an elder yesterday who teaches Germanic and Nordic cosmology and spirituality. And she said there's this concept of orlog in that cosmology that is like, it's like the water in the well that has been created by the actions of all the previous generations, right? It's the orlog is like the fabric of reality that's here today based on what happened in the past. But we also can change the orlog with our actions today. And so even though it's so overwhelming right now and so scary, I'm really trying to focus on, okay, what are the actions that we can take to put into the orlog for the whole nature of reality for all the generations of all time, because we're all still connected. The past is still acting out today. We're not separate from it. And we're not also not separate from the future. So that's kind of where I'm trying to keep my mind and my energy. Not always successfully.
And maybe there's some as bubbles of denial about what is the truth about our own history and our own relationship to this history and some of that.
Oh yeah. So much.
What do you think about facing that,
I
learning
mean,
the truth?
I just think that whiteness has anesthetized us and made us, it's kind of dumbed us down, and it has made us accept, lies. And not only accept lies, but in some cases it's made us, perpetuate those lies and keep those lies going and build on those lies. And so, our opportunity from my perspective is just, we can break through that. We don't have to believe those lies anymore. And, sometimes I feel like, you hear about white fragility or, some of the defense mechanisms that whiteness builds up in us and keeps us unable to embrace reality and keeps us locked up in a system of denial. And I feel like we do that sometimes because it's so scary to push through that and see what's underneath. Scary to see all the pain that's happened, all the trauma and war and genocide, all the separation. But we can do it. We have the strength to do it. And especially when we build relationships with the land and with the water. Those are the sources of strength that enable that kind of breaking through all those lies and creating something different.
Very, very inspiring. And so I want to ask, how do we walk with integrity with these heavy burdens? When you brought up the pain and, the horror of understanding that we have a relationship with perpetrations, that the history that I know of course, specifically is really horrific.
Yeah.
And that's my lineage. And yet I'm not alone, and none of us are alone in this. We are, white settlers, most of us here. And how is it that we cope with then this realization of the grief that it brings forth and the depth? It's serious. It's a serious reckoning.
Yeah. It is. It's a serious reckoning. And I mean, I went through years of grieving about that. And And it's okay to grieve too. Like my therapist just told me recently, because my dog died, and she said, grief feels terrible, but it's not going to kill you. Remember, it's not going to kill you. You're going to
Oh,
make it.
good one.
And so that was a good thought. And then also, and I would be curious if any of the people who are in the current circle want to share, because we just talked about this on Tuesday night, where we have to ritualize it in order to let it go. And, you know, there's only so much you can do with your mind and with your intellect in terms of processing. And what happens sometimes, I think, is that if we process too much, we get spun around, and we're just spinning. We're just spinning in an endless loop that never goes anywhere. But we just finished doing this ritual of burning a bundle that had prayers inside. And I'm curious if anyone wants to share about their experience with that.
I would like to say that I love that you're talking about the spinning, which is self-defeating and wastes our energies. And also share my experience, even just of Tuesday night. So many of us commented on how we've loosened the bonds of our ancestors hold on us, or those, just like we're many, myself included, we're speaking about how the relationship in the process over, this has been 6, 7 months, 8 months, maybe, slowly, spaciously, thinking about holding sacred ceremony on our altars, writing these letters of apology and forgiveness, and then ritualizing that, has really helped to make it much more actionable, or like a real relationship that we can hold, rather than be burdened by this imagination of what it is.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing, Ren.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I think that it occurs to me that, the grief that we have about this, and the tears that we weep is just connected to your water and to the sacredness.
Yeah.
And, the tears are sacred. Weeping, keening, and grieving is a sacred ritual, I would imagine, in order to release or integrate in a way what we're going through. And some of my thought was around what Basil Braveheart talked about when and I love this quote, it's really extraordinary. And he said, "I think the trauma is surfacing through the land as a way to move toward forgiveness." Help us unpack that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. He's so wise. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe if you felt that, maybe raise your hand, or has anyone experienced that, where you go out on the land and you just feel this immense sadness coming through, and these tears that have to be shed, and this like your heart is just breaking with that connection from the land. I saw a couple people, or and few heads nodding. And if you think about it, this land has absorbed a lot of bloodshed from this genocide.
Yes.
And the bones of those ancestors are in this land, and they remember what happened here, even if we've like somehow deluded ourselves into thinking it doesn't matter anymore. It's that reality is still in the land, and it's waiting for us to work with it, and to alchemize it, and to create the next iteration. So I think Basil is so right on with that statement.
And the concept of forgiveness is not a simple one. It seems to be extraordinarily nuanced and complicated. And certainly you talked about radical apology and radical forgiveness. And and I got a deeper sense from your discussion about what forgiveness is and but what redemption is, or reparations. In that, I think you're saying we need to have self-forgiveness first, self-forgiveness before we can actually forgive someone else. And I find that extraordinarily deep for us when we're doing this kind of work, where we're encountering difficult aspects of ourselves. And you can talk a little bit about the shadow and the facing of the shame, but also the forgiveness then that is called for.
Yeah. Yeah. I was spinning around for several years because I didn't understand this piece about self-forgiveness until Basil suggested that to me as a possibility. And once I started working on that, I realized, that is so powerful. That is a form of grace that comes without, we can't earn that, but it's there still. Nonetheless, it's there, and it's accessible to all of us if we simply tap into it. And again, I think this is where ritual really helps us sometimes, because sometimes our minds can't quite accept something yet, but then when we ritualize it and do something with our hands and with the physical environment to say it's already done, then it can actually happen. It's kind of, a magical process in some ways. But yeah, I just think my co-facilitator, Alicia Holiday, who I've been working with for 5 years on this material, she and I have seen this many times. People go, we ask people every year to write these prayers of apology and forgiveness. And a lot of times people have got very deep family histories of harm and perpetration that, of course, they want to address. But as they go through their process of writing their prayer, many times they find that they can't do anything with that until they work on forgiving themselves first. And so in some ways it can be a gateway to the bigger work.
Right.
Yeah.
So in a way, it is facing the shame and the guilt that one may somehow have embodied, and but that we might think ourselves unredeemable or unworthy of forgiveness.
Right.
I think that's a large hurdle.
Mm-hmm.
But therefore, yes, forgiving ourselves, and that I love the concept that that healing, that forgiving, can enable us to feel like we actually do belong here. We do belong on this land, that we are not just thieves who've stolen land, but there is a possibility for us to forgive ourselves and to enable our soul and bodies to feel that we do belong here. As white settlers, it can be a difficult and hard realization. And so for me, it's like the soul of acceptance is that, yeah, you've been here, and there is a step and there is a way that is essential for us to consciously take that enables us to better understand that we belong here as well. And I think that's what you're helping people with, Hilary, so much, and so importantly, is that sense. And then we might look at reparations, and what that might mean for us. And so what do you want to tell us about? I wrote down here reparative earth. And so much of this comes back to the earth and to land. Obviously, this theme is coming forth for us in the spirit of this conversation. Yeah. So it does tie into somehow repaying what you've called the unpayable debt of,
Right.
wow, yeah, the
Yeah.
unpayable debt. That's serious.
Yeah. Well, I remember for years thinking there is just no possible way that I will ever belong here after I've unearthed all this stuff about my family and about settler colonialism, right?
Right.
But then over time, I started really tuning in and paying attention even more and listening when I was in, spaces that were led and organized by people of color and Indigenous people. And I started to hear in the subtext of what they were saying that no one wants us to be here with walking around with a bunch of guilt and shame. That's not what they're asking.
Huh.
They don't want that. That doesn't help them. That doesn't help the earth. That doesn't help anybody. And also at the same time, to my astonishment, I started to realize, at least in the spaces I was in, they also weren't asking us to leave, right? They weren't saying you need to go back to Europe and get out of here. They weren't saying, that they wanted to round up my family and put them in a concentration camp, like what happened to the Dene people here at Fort Sumner. And so there's a middle ground. And when you rule out all of those scenarios, there's another scenario that starts to emerge that's much more subtle than all the others that you can tune into, which is there is actually a way to be here as a good relative. And it involves looking at this stuff honestly. It involves reciprocity. It involves not being afraid to acknowledge it or talk about it. And then it involves like diving in with both hands and with your whole heart and saying, I'm here for us. I'm here for all of us. I'm here for this Mother Earth. I'm here for the waters. I'm here for these communities. I'm here so that we can all be one people, And sometimes if we happen to find ourselves in a position of privilege or power, that means giving some things up, and that's okay, because a lot of us have a lot to spare that we can give without even having to suffer as a result,
Mhm.
and so yeah, it's kind that's kind of, I went through that process of like weeding out all the options, like, gosh, I remember trying it on for years, like, should I try to immigrate to Ireland or Scotland, and then I realized I wouldn't belong there either. And at one
Yeah.
point I heard a Scottish elder speaking on a Zoom call, and he said, all of you Scottish descendants who think you're going to come back here and become Scottish, we don't want you to do that. And he said, we want you to befriend the Indigenous people where you live and be in service to them.
Mhm.
That's the best thing you can do.
Oh
And
my
at that point,
gosh.
I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, that's it. So,
That's so beautiful. Yeah, I thought I would maybe learn to speak Gaelic, so I signed up, and clearly it's really difficult. Don't have a talent, but wow, that was no way going to happen. But I do want to raise up one of the steps that I felt very touched by, which was when you were with your family and had your father invite to come and do, I guess we would call it ritual, wouldn't we, Hilary, to be looking at the history. And it's not so easy asking close relatives to do that. I know that. And his prayer before, as you said, at the table where you have been sitting today, his prayer, Lord, we are here today to remember the people, our ancestors enslaved. And we're sorry for all they suffered. Please forgive us for their pain. Amen. And to that pain, we are to get to joy and purpose, Hilary. That's what I'm hearing from you. that the beauty and the authentic sense that we understand who we are and that we can belong, and that it is with joy that we move forward to do this, and with love.
That's right. It's a tremendous opportunity.
So that got me on the father thing.
It gets me too still.
Yeah. It's such a privilege to be a part of those movements and that reality of beauty and unexpected beauty as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, prayers seem to be a part of this, and ritual and healing. So whew, the sacred tears. Anything else, Hilary, you want to say at this point? Because we'll get ready to go break up into our small groups to discuss. Anything you want to add? Because the last part was very beautiful.
I guess I would just add that I'm not special. You know, anybody can do this. And a friend told me recently, white people need to start seeing pain, this kind of pain, not as something to avoid, but as the doorway to our healing. And I agree with that. It feels scary at first sometimes, but there's so much joy on the other side, and anybody can do it. So I would just say that.
Encouragement. That's what I get. You know, the heart.
Yeah.
The right heart, the opening heart, the broken open heart that Joanna Macy says can contain the world. I deeply believe that as well. So thank you. Thank you so much for this, Hilary. And I just wish we did have longer time. We'll have to do 2 hours next time doing anything like this. So I guess I'm going to look for us to go into small groups to discuss. And I have a prompt, but feel free to say what you and feel what you would do. We're going to have groups of 3, 5 minutes each, basically, for 15 minutes, and then we'll have 15 minutes of Q&A with Hilary. And here's my prompt. Where do you feel most at home? How do you walk the complexities of belonging to this place and time? And how is it going? Okay, I'll start.
So there, those are in chat now, Molly, and 32 people. I would suggest 10 breakout rooms.
Okay. So welcome back, everyone. And of course, I messed up on the timing when I was going to be doing it so well. But that's the technology of life. And so I invite your questions for Hilary or comments that may have arisen for you from our interview or your small groups. And we're going to have about 10 or 12 minutes for this, and then an ending with Hilary. So I invite you to raise your hand, virtually with the little golden hand. And then I will call on you, and please, unmute yourself and ask your question of Hilary. Don't waste any time. Who would like to ask a question or say a comment? Talk about how's it been going for you? Sage.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Hi, Hilary. Nice to see you.
Hi, Sage.
I wanted to hear a little bit more about how you got that family gathered to the table, because I am the only one in my immediate or family of origin walking this path.
Mhm.
So I'd love to hear a little bit more about how those initial conversations, because it's not even on so many of their radars.
Mhm. I know, it's so hard. Yeah. Yeah, it was rough for my family for years after I read that book of genealogy and insisted on looking at it and talking about it often with, in intergenerational conversations. And it was rough. Um, you know, people, our tendency is to want to just sweep that under the rug and forget about it. And it's interesting because I feel like in white culture, it's almost like a script that we've all learned without being explicitly taught. There's a script of, well, that happened a long time ago and we shouldn't feel guilty about that. Or, there's a whole set of phrases like that I heard repeated over and over. And they're all just a way to deflect, and they don't have a basis in reality. So I just kept going, even though I was feeling some anger and a lot of anger at my ancestors, like, why did you do this? And why did you leave me holding the bag with this? And anger at some of my living family members too. But we just kept going. And there was something about, I think, the persistence of my not giving up, that they were kind of like, okay, well, now she wants to go to Louisiana with us, so we might as well go, And then, that was such a transformative experience, because not only were they opening to me, but I was opening to them. I was saying, oh, well, there's more here than I ever knew. There's more complexity here. There's more richness here. There's generosity here. There's kindness here. There was a relationship with this land here in Sugartown, Louisiana, that I didn't understand. It was a multi-generational family relationship with this land. And so I think that insisting on staying in loving relations and just keeping at it gently was what did it.
Mm, that's a good one.
She persisted. Thank you.
Right.
She persisted. Thank you about that. And Hilary and I talked about similar. I mean, I'm the only one in my family who looks at this when I get together with them. It's just like, they're so flippant. God, and then I get mad. And then my children, who are in their 40s, don't want to look at it either, because their life is so intensely present to bring forth their world. And so maybe that's why some of this reaction about, the pain of this and the difficulty of carrying the burden is what I'm realizing in these sessions, is that I got some way to go here on accepting that. Lucas, I see you, Lucas.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, just
Yeah.
I'm curious, Hilary, too. In all the genealogy work, because I know it's my experience. It probably a lot. It's easy to have certain perceptions. Were there any particular ancestral stories or family members that like kind of cracked open a whole different experience of understanding that wants to be shared? That kind of broke through maybe a perception of like, oh, they were just colonizers in the harshest way, where there were more nuanced stories that felt really important to understand.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things for me was going to Ireland, and I think it was in 2022, and going to all these places with my parents, and with my children. And then before the trip, I had read a lot about Irish history and how the British Crown colonized the Irish, and the centuries of abuse in Ireland, and realizing that I had, you know, ancestors who were English, ancestors who were Scots-Irish, meaning that they had been used as pawns of the British government to colonize Catholics in Northern Ireland, and Irish Catholics as well. And the whole cast of characters is in my bloodline, you know? And so I think that was one of the most profound things was, you know, it's that combination of reading history, talking to family, and then going to the land is very potent. And I think it takes a multidimensional approach to chip away at some of this stuff too, you know, that helps.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
And
Comments?
also one thing I would add to, Lucas, is storytelling. That's another piece that's really important. When I sat with my, you know, family elders in Louisiana and listened to their stories, that's when it really started to just like melt. All of that resistance and that pain was just like, oh, these are people, you know? So that's
Beautiful.
another piece. Yeah.
Thanks, Hilary. Kurt has a question or a comment.
Hi, thank you, Hilary, for being present with us, and thanks, Molly, for your ongoing journey.
Thank you.
I'm wondering, Hilary, if you, along the way, most of the work that I've done around race and race issues, for me, cultural issues have been black-white,
Mhm.
and that's been a pretty much my adult life. I'm wondering if in the work, excuse me, goodness, I'm wondering if in the work that you're doing, I mean, where have you come across differences? Where have you come across intersections? You know, how has that been for you? Because I mean, one of the things that I seem to find is just, well, there's a land-based issue here that African American people have a struggle with because they were taken. And
Yeah.
so there's a whole thing around that. And but anyway, I just wonder what, you know, what your experience has been.
Yeah, where I live, the African American community is very small, and so I don't have as much access to those relationships here. And the relationships I have with Black people are more spread out around the country.
Mhm.
But I do know, I had a wonderful my final reader on this book was a wonderful, intelligent, beautiful, insightful African American woman, and she pointed out to me often that she had me put several footnotes and several things in there saying, you know, in some places, the Indigenous and African American experience is parallel,
Mhm.
and in other cases, it's very different,
Mhm.
you know? And so I think it's just important, you know, when we interact with these communities that we really listen, because
Mhm.
the issues are not always exactly the same. Sometimes there are parallels,
Mhm.
but especially in reparations,
Mhm.
though the Indigenous communities and the African American communities are asking for different things in a lot of cases.
Mhm.
And sometimes I find that with Indigenous reparations, it's much more land-based.
Mhm.
And with African American, it might be something different. It might be more like, you know, access to education or rest. Rest is a really important one there.
Mhm.
Because, you know, the brutality that they're up against all the time from policing and so forth
Mhm.
is means that they require a lot of rest and time to recuperate. So I hear that need a lot, at least in my circles. And I just think it's really valuable to show up however you can with the community that's closest to you and listen for what they're asking for.
Mhm. Mhm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
The whole idea of listening in that particular
Yeah.
way, yeah, that really.
Yeah. It's so important that we are able to really be in interaction and close aiming for a relationship, which is not so easy, Hilary. And obviously, if we're not in proximity of Indigenous groups or African American groups. So it is a larger question that is important, I think, for us as people who want to be working towards a relationship. And I think you would say that, you know, for us to be authentically ourselves and who we are, and grasp that we are people who would want to be on this journey and on this path for reparation and for right relationship and right heart, as I've been saying for some time. Hilary, how does it feel for you at this moment for your closing and your blessing for us, possibly your song with us?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just so grateful to be able to spend time with all of you. And you know, I just want you to know that that ancestor altar in my dining room is still there. It's just right downstairs from where I'm sitting right now. And I go there almost every day, and I light a candle and I put water in my bowl and I say prayers for you. Even if I don't know you yet, or I've never encountered you, I put prayers out for all the people who are reading the book and who are taking these steps on this path. And we're all trying our best, you know? And so I honor you, and I honor the steps that you're taking, and I honor the inquiries and the places that are uncomfortable that you're looking at anyway, even though it hurts maybe. And there's a spell on the cover of the book that I drew. It's called a sigil, and it indicates that the book and this work, you can find it. I don't have one by me, but it's in you see the sunflower on the bottom right corner?
Yes.
In the center of that sunflower. And it says, what that sigil says is guided, protected, and fruitful. So that is my prayer and my intention with this work, is that it will go where it needs to go with guidance, that it will be protected, and that it will land in the spaces where it's going to be the most benefit, and that it will be fruitful, meaning that it will bear all kinds of flowers and fruits and new ideas and projects and possibilities. So every time you hold that book in your hands, you're holding that spell, and you're holding that book. I swear every page of it is laced and laden with so many prayers and so many blessings. So I hope that you'll feel it, and just that it can be a gift for you to do what is yours to do, and that it can guide you and open doors for you that are uniquely yours. And so I wanted to actually I thought about it a little bit, and there's a prayer that's come to me to share with you. This is a very old Gaelic prayer, and it originates with, it's in the book Carminica Delica, which is an old book of spells and, you know, prayers and blessings and charms that was curated by a folklorist named Alexander Carmichael in the late 1800s. And so it goes. So this is a prayer of the she, which is the fairies or the good people, but she also means peace. So those two words, it's like the other world and this world are linked together. When they're in good relationship, then peace ensues. So you're going to hear the word she 9 times, which is a sacred number in that cosmology. So it goes, she nan sonas, she nan solas, she nan solas, she nan anam, she nan flaas, she nan oyan, she nan shivrig, she nan shihinch, Shi Nan Shiuch. So may peace be with you, with us, with all our relations as we move forward and find our way into the next dream.
So beautiful, Hilary. And amen. Our hearts are touched, opened, and broken open. And if we all just say thank you, we're touching, we're touching each other. We are connected. So lovely. Hilary. Thank you.
Thank you.
Till the next time.
Thank you so much.
Mhm. Thank
welcome.
you.
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank
you.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you.
I love you, Hilary.
I love you.
You, Hilary.
Thank you.
you.